With us today, we have quite a few of us actually. We have joining with us Mrs. Lailun Khan, who is from PICL and has been a line producer and AV agent for quite a few years, a licensed line producer. We have with us as well Ritesh Prasad, also from the same organization, PICL, and he has worked with the film industry and the local crew and the overseas productions with accounts and administrative duties. Also joining us is Ms. Kahaya Pearson, who's joining us from the U.S. Survivor. Kahaya was recently in Fiji when Survivor was here to carry out their episode and their shoot on Mana Island. Welcome back once again, Kahaya. And also joining us in today's Zoom session is Mr. Lance Miller. Lance is no stranger to the audiovisual scene. He has been around for a few years as well. He has been very supportive, a veteran local crew who knows in and out of the local industry. Welcome, Lance. Good to talk to you
Hello,
again this
everybody.
morning. Also, we have with us the production executive from Film Fiji, my colleague Chane Robertson, was here. Chane has also been involved with the local crew and directly deals with productions coming into the country. Chane liaises with the services to productions and all legal matters as well. He liaises directly with productions for all their needs and requirements. So he's a big help to Film Fiji, being the in-between person with productions and the administrative duties here at Film Fiji. And of course, with us is today's panel is the CEO of Film Fiji, Mr. Ramiro Tenorio, who's here as well. And yeah, so we are. Excuse me. We are carrying out today's session two, which is about learning by doing, basically learning audiovisual by doing. And just a brief about our panel discussions under the umbrella of the Film Fiji Audiovisual Lab. We have lately launched a new initiative, which is called a series of panel discussions, whereby we explore the landscape of Fiji's audiovisual needs. And the reason for these panel discussions is to aim at creating an open space for a dialogue whereby people, stakeholders come together and identify opportunities in the audiovisual sector, which may contribute to new initiatives in the future for the industry as a whole, for the local crew, and also the stakeholders. Yeah, so moving on, once again, I'd like to thank everyone for joining us, taking your time out and being with us here today. And we look forward to a very fruitful discussion. Right. I think we can start with Kahaya, perhaps. Um, Sorry to throw you under the bus there.
No.
But Kahaya, I mean, you were lately in Fiji. You have worked with our local crew. You obviously have identified our infrastructure, what the Fijian film industry is about. Kahaya, tell us about what you personally feel when working with the local crew. What do you feel is our stronghold? What do you feel is our expertise, and what do you feel that what is identified as the Fijian crew in the Fijian film industry?
Well, I think the main thing for me is to point out is the work ethic. Like, I find the Fijian crew to work, to have such a great work ethic, and we really, really are lucky on Survivor to have been going back to the same location for over 5 years now, and just getting to know our local crew really well and seeing how hard they do work. And the other thing is, and that this goes without saying, the Bula spirit, and how, like, it's such a pleasure to be part of that team, and for them to have welcomed us on Mana Island, in the Manta Island. So we're definitely lucky. So that's like the biggest point for me is the work ethic, which we truly appreciate and we're very grateful for. I do think that a lot of like people that are not part of our industry see the film industry as more the technical side, like being a grip, being an electric, being a camera operator, and wanting to be a director. But in my opinion, 80% of working in the film industry has to do with logistics. And that's something that Fiji does have, like with transportation, and how lucky we are in the Mamanutas to have such experienced boat captains, for example, that can navigate in all, all different types of weather conditions. So we're really lucky in that sense. And also the fact that they do live remotely on the islands, they do have that sense of being resourceful. Like if you don't have this, if it's not available to you, which is very much our world, like this is very specific to Survivor, but being able to figure something out with what you have on site. Sometimes we don't have time to get a barge over for whatever we need, and you just figure it out, and having that mentality. So I think those are very strong points. One thing that I do feel with the Fijian crew in general is they're like by nature they're very humble, and they're very kind, but they're also very shy. So I feel like to improve and to move up in this industry when we're so busy, like productions come in, they have a goal, they need to get the show in the can and then go. Like it's good if the Fijian crew could be a little bit more pushy to learn. Like don't hesitate to come and bother the producers or anyone. Just go in and try to be a bit less shy to be able to learn more, because people are there with skills that they love to, like they're mostly artists who love to share their skills and their knowledge. So taking advantage of that. So I think that would be my main message to the crew in general. If they want to learn more, they need to like get out of that little shell and go and ask and say, oh, or it's my day off, or I'll stay a little bit longer if you want to teach me how to, whether it's welding or operating a camera. So those are my main points.
Right. Thank you. Yes, indeed. Work ethics and are very much paramount, especially with the traditional based workers, like on the island where they're living mostly communal, and like how you mentioned that if things aren't available, they can very well work with improvisions and working with improvised things around them. That is of course a stronghold. But yes, something interesting that you said, that people are perhaps reserved or shy, not very vocal, and that's something that you feel that they should work on. Lance, what do you think is the reason? Is it traditional? Is it because of the culture, or why do you think it is like this, and what should we do in order to break through?
It is culture based. With the Fijian crew, they are very polite. They've been taught to be very polite from a young age, and you don't speak until you're spoken to, basically. And that's one of the reasons what Kaya brought up. I mean, I was noticing on US Survivor, especially the fact that they allow people to shadow different departments during the production. If you're going as a dream team, they're allowed to shadow certain departments on their day off. And a lot of Fijians, few of the Fijians took that up. Some of them didn't. And again, it's because they're shy, or it's just being too polite, I think. You notice the American dream teamers, they're in there. They just want to get in there. The Americans and Australians, they just want to get in there and do it and learn. Whereas the Fijians, they say, "Oh, okay, you're going to shadow that team. I won't do it. I'll do it with someone else." They just, they're trying to be accommodating all the time. But going back to US Survivor, because they've been here for so long, there's a lot of people on the show in production that know what they're doing. So there's a very big pool there at the moment, doing nothing right now, which is, especially in unit where I was working, unit and production as in Kahaya's section as well. There's a big team of unit guys and production guys out there that have been doing the show, even grips, actually. I was talking to Callum, is it Callum?
Yeah.
Callum, yeah, the lead grip guy. he's got boys on the show that he's willing to take overseas if he can. They're that good. So I mean, there is a pool, is what I'm saying anyway. Yeah.
So with what you said, only speak when spoken to. I mean, I understand the politeness and all this, but would we perhaps identify this as a drawback?
I don't know. I mean, you'll get the odd one or two that'll speak up. Actually, you get more than one or two. But it is a bit of a drawback, I must say. And I try and talk to them when I'm around the guys. I always try and talk to them and say, look, learn as much as you can. I mean, they're way younger than I am. They can absorb so much more. And a lot of them have taken advantage of that. So.
Sorry, Sam, let me,
right.
So one of the things for the panel, if anyone wants to interrupt, I think we're a small enough group that if anyone wants to just, interrupt, just go ahead. I'll take the opportunity now. I think that's such an interesting point in terms of one of the reasons for this panel is the idea of how much you can learn by doing, like the process of learning on set. And I think, at least for me, one of the issues as I was beginning my career was how important it is to figure out kind of to read the room, because it is true that you have to, at some points you need to speak up, and at some points you should not. Like there's a moment for things to happen. There's a moment where the stress is at a certain level that you should not be interrupting the team, and there's moments in which you really need to show that you want to learn, so that by the next stressful time you are ready enough or considered someone that can provide help, even without having to ask to provide it. So I think it goes back to the point I think Sam was pointing to with his question of is it a drawback? I'm guessing, or my argument, my understanding of it is that there is an equilibrium and that there's a right moment for each attitude. So being a go-getter, but also understanding where you need to be and when not to interrupt, because it's not your moment to interrupt. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, and I agree with
if
that.
I may just, sorry, if I might just add, I'd like to reflect back on when we first started, with the providing services with the productions. Back in 2010, 11, when we did the first production, we had to actually look for local crew. And there was no trained local crew as they are today. And so we gathered a number of people and we spoke with them and we said, here's a production, we need a local crew. So a couple of very interesting things that came up. One was the terminology of the local crew. I mean, our local crew hadn't heard of production terminology. I mean, it's fine to say producer, director, coordinator and all that, but right at the bottom of the rank, the terminology called runner. So we I'm just talking about an experience we had, and our local crew started as runners. So I remember a couple of them came to me and said, can we change the terminology of this word runner? I don't like it, because I'm not a runner, from jobs. So it's that kind of experience we've had to today. And similarly, I mean, there are some norms on a set. So it's fine to work on a set, but again, while our crew are shy to talk about themselves, to promote themselves, but I think by nature, we Fijians are quite loud and happy, and on a set, they had to be told, don't run on a set. You have to be quiet, and if you want something, you have to have your moment. Yes, and if you see things lying around, you don't pick them up, or you don't say, hey, you guys, you do this or you do that, because again, there is a moment, it's somebody else's. So when I think about those days when we started and where we are today, I believe our crew are quite trained. They understand the language, they understand what is required on a set. And the sort of conduct of behavior is very much what an international sort of production expects of them. Like I have said, that they're pretty good. Yes, yeah, they are good. But again, by nature, they're a bit shy, but they're getting a bit, much more vocal. I mean, Lance is not shy. I've worked with Lance for several years, and sometimes I have to tell him, please be quiet, or my ears are full. So, yeah, and I think some good things are happening with our local crew. They're getting a better understanding of what is required of them and what they should be doing, and they've acquired a lot of experience today. And we can boast about saying that we have well-trained local crew at certain level, of course. Yeah. Mm. Mm.
Sam, your microphone is mute. Sam, your microphone is on mute.
Sorry, just on that, thank you for that contribution, Mrs. Khan. Chane, you have been directly involved with productions, having worked on Adrift yourself. Tell me your experience as a local crew, and in terms of learning by doing, and what you actually learned on set while being working as a crew.
Yeah, well, I'll agree with the terminology with that Leilun had mentioned. When I first started on a production, my position was a yacht wrangler. So I had no idea what I was supposed to do. I didn't know what a yacht wrangler meant. But what it was you had to go and source out yachts that you needed for the production, picture yachts and also the main yachts. So that's how I started off. And some of the team had come in and out, and then they said, okay, can you be a yacht wrangler and a vehicle wrangler? So I was like, okay, so does that mean I have to source vehicles as well? It's like, yes, but then you have to source particular types of vehicles that obviously the director wanted at the time. So particular color, obviously the model that suits the time of when the movie was shot, since this was based on a book. You had to get everything that was similar to the time frame, which was, I think, 1950. I think that's when the production was trying to unite that time frame. So yeah, it was a challenge trying to find those particular vehicles, but Fiji somehow managed to pull off, I think we got like 12 vehicles that we could use, both trucks and the normal picture vehicles. And also when we're filming in Suva City, we somehow managed to get more vehicles there. Yeah, it was very surprising that we could find all these old vehicles around Fiji. I mean, we sourced them from Ba, Nandi, the yachts as well came from Bunda Marina. So the experience was pretty good. You gain a lot of knowledge working with the overseas crew. If you just put yourself out there and just say, hey, I'm free here, I've got nothing else to do. Would you mind if I just tag along and see what you guys have? I'll just carry some of the stuff for you. And they'll be like, yeah, come on. They drag you along and then make you carry everything under the sun. But then you just start watching them. So you're just basically learning while you're watching them. And then they say, hey, you want to try this out? And you'd be like, okay. And then you put yourself out there. And I get what Kahaya and Lance were saying about the cultural aspect. But I think if we build the confidence in the crew that start, and then they just get that confidence, and that what also is good for the Fijians in particular is that friendship. So once you get the connection with the local crew, then they will have that confidence to say, hey, I can try that with you. And then they'll be like, okay, yeah, sure, why not? You know, come along. So it's always that confidence building within the local crew. Obviously, when I started, I was very shy. I just stuck with a small group of people that I knew.
I remember that,
and then,
Johnny.
Yeah, you just start off with a small group of people, and then you got a huge group of a pool of people that you can rely on. And like, I know most of the local crew now through one production alone. That's how you could say the production local crew is small, but it is more like a family in some respect. So because everyone's building each other up, which is what I think is essential for the local industry to grow.
Yeah, it's indeed quite close knit. Like what you said is, just through one production, you got to know almost all of the crew who are here locally. It is a close knit community, so to say. Kahaya, just coming back to you, in your experience working in the Pacific, in the region, working with Pacific Islanders, excuse me. So tell me, is the trend similar with the crew in other Pacific Island countries?
Yes, I would say, like, I have to admit that I have been working in Fiji for quite some time and solely in Fiji, so I'm quite removed from, the last time we were in Samoa was in 2011, so it's quite some time ago. I do liaise a lot with audiovisual professionals here in French Polynesia, so we do have a lot of discussions on how everything works. One thing that is quite common, I find, and I don't know what the solution is, in Fiji and here, or like in the Pacific in general, is because our islands are so spread out. We usually find a shooting location that is either remote or separate from where the main city is or where the capital is, which in turn kind of creates an issue, which is a combination of like a budgetary issue and a political, when you're trying to hire locally, like from this Matangali, or it does get political when you need to hire trained professionals, because that's what the ideal situation would be, but you have limitations on where you can get them. And I don't know what the solution is, but I think it's something that we should discuss, or something interesting to discuss with having maybe AV agents or Film Fiji or someone just go in and do some workshops with different areas that are prone to receive productions. So there are like you were saying, to start, even the terminology, just the basic information would be great, because it is sensitive when we have to hire people from Nandi to come to Mana Island, when there are so many people looking for work nearby. Like, it does, like, I understand why some of the chiefs get a bit upset when we're having to go and get so many people from different areas, but it's just based on what skills we're looking for. So I don't, like, I as I said, I don't know what the solution is, but I think it'd be something interesting to work out and talk about, with maybe just workshops when everything opens up again, maybe because I'm worried, like, if we ever had to go to a different location in Fiji and not being able to take all the crew that we have trained from the Mahutas, would be heartbreaking, and a huge drain on our production as well, like going to a new place because of those and it's not just the political situations with having to hire locally, it's also a budget issue with having to house that many people. Logistically and budgetary can be very tricky if
Right.
Yeah. If I may just add, yes. Sorry, Karia, did you finish?
No, go ahead. Yes, I'm finished.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Going back to engagement of local labor from the villages. When we go to ITLTB for rental or lease of a particular area, one of the conditions of the ITLTB agreement is that you need to engage certain number of locals from that particular area. And from experience, we've found that they don't have the experience or the expertise, that is required by the production. And then what do you do? Because it's a very delicate balance you have to have, because you can't upset the local Matangali or the terms of engagement that you have signed with ITLTB. You have to honor it. So this is where you again look at your budget. Okay, I mean, I just take these 10 people because of the agreement that we have, but we don't need them. We need 10 from our own crew or from another island or some experienced staff. This is a major issue for all the productions. I remember when we were working with the French production in Yesau, was a similar experience we had. The French needed at least about 10 experienced crew that were brought in from the mainland. But the condition of the lease of the place was that from every Matangali. Initially, the Matangalis wanted 10 from every Matangali. That would have been like from 10 Matangalis, 100 people. So we spoke with ITLTB and we said, no, it's not possible. So can this number be reduced? And the number was reduced. But still, I mean, it becomes an additional cost when you can't usefully engage those people. And I suppose this happens perhaps more in the first year when someone's there for a repeat. Then they have picked up the local crew from the villages would have picked up some experience. And as you go along, they keep on picking up experience of doing the work. But initial cost does become high. Yes. Mm-hmm.
So maybe a point there. For me, the idea of how important it is to build trust in the downtime, in a way, the idea that you to show yourself and to build experience, so that by the time the decision making comes, so by the time for when it's time to make that decision, you're already in the mind of the people that will have to make that call. And then out of personal experience, the idea of just working on something that you know that will bring you knowledge in the future, even if at the beginning of your career is not necessarily bringing you the income that you would maybe hope for at that point, but that this industry in particular is so much about having the people in the team trusting that you can do that job when the moment comes. So I think there's something there to be said about building your network. And I'm saying this because I hope that a lot of people will be looking at this panel thinking about how do they get into the industry. And I think it's important to build that network in advance, because probably by the time you heard about a production that it's already in production, your time to get hired has already passed. The team is already being hired at that point. So you're probably, it's very hard for you to get on that team at that point. There's something to be done during the downtime. Does that ring with you guys? Would that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. I think with what John had tried to highlight earlier on as well, with the local crew community being very close knit. So information is shared within that group, and by the time, like Ramiro has said, when it's time to actually hire, the positions are mostly filled. Talking about skills and job creation, I mean, the Fijian audiovisual industry has created hundreds, thousands of jobs, and the demand for local crew has risen over the years. And I believe once things normalize and productions start to come back into the country, the demand will keep on further increasing. But to sustainably maintain the local industry while keeping Fijians employed, Lance, this question is for you. Speaking in terms of skills, local strongholds. Tell me from your point of view, what do you think are the skills which we perhaps lack, or skills or which we need to further develop? Or look for avenues to develop in terms of both technical, administrative, and all those roles within the production.
Well, with regards to, I mean, I sort of mentioned grips and unit and production. With administrative, I mean, Kahea would know more about it than I would, and so would Leilun. I'm normally on the ground in locations and helping unit out and getting things going there. As I said, there's a lot of unit crew out there that can do the job, that they can step in and do the job. If they've got a supervisor from overseas or something come in, a lot of the stuff can be done with local crew. With regards to unit, with camera equipment and stuff like that, I've noticed with Survivor how they allow the guys to step in and do a lot of the junior guys step in and do the filming and do the camera. They don't call it camera operating. Well, I don't know what they call it, but anyway, they're allowed to operate the camera during the shoot. And there was a few local guys on there as well, which I was quite proud of, actually. With locations, I mean, Vince does locations for Survivor. For Survivor US. I've helped Leilun with locations on on French and also a couple of other movies. And we managed to do it that way with local guys. We didn't have to bring new overseas guys in. The only one they did was Fantasy Island. They brought in a locations person in for that one. And yeah, everything sort of worked. We had mostly local crew. It was just the supervisors that were there. I don't know much about the production side of things because I try to not hang out in the office as much as everybody else does. So, I mean, Kahai will probably know more about that, but the local production crew that were there, I mean, they were doing a lot of the work running around on Mana. And the movies I've worked in with Leilun, we have a lot of local production guys running around doing the running. Also in the offices as coordinators and stuff like that. So, I mean, there are people that can do those jobs. Again, production's just got to let us know what we need, what's needed.
Yeah, if I'm,
Yeah.
Go ahead. Sorry,
Yeah,
with
go
the
ahead,
production
sure.
side of it and the administration side of it, I have to admit that it's been fantastic. Ever since we arrived in Fiji, we've had a lot of different production assistants come through our production office, and they always move up to different departments because they are they're fast learners. And I have to say, in production in general, as long as you listen and you learn the system for the specific production, then everything else is like common sense and basic computer skills, and which all our local crew that have come to the production office have had, and they were very good. And I think most of them we would want to take with us internationally because they learn so fast, and now they know our system very well, to the point where they move up to a different department. They get stolen from the production department to go to marine or accounting. We've had a lot of people who started as production assistants in the office and then have moved on to a different department because they're so good.
Yeah.
Ritesh,
If I may,
I think this would be for you.
if I may just add what Lance had said. I mean, talking about location department, for example, now we do have locals who are able to hold the position of assistant managers or even manager, like Lance has done and is doing. The thing is that one needs to understand every department, what the work is involved. For example, with location, I used to hear from our locals previously, they used to say, hey, Fiji is our turf. We know it better than, others. So why are people from overseas coming to become location managers and assistant location managers? But in a film production, it goes beyond, what you see as a piece of land or a waterfall or whatever, because a manager, as Lance and you all know, needs to be able to read the script and have that analytical ability to see, okay, what is needed. I mean, you can have 10 beautiful waterfalls, but it doesn't mean that all the waterfalls will be fine for a production, because then you have to look at logistics. Where will the shoot take place, for example, where the vehicles will be parked, what will be the flow of the traffic, all these things need to be taken into account. So this is where we have been talking to our locals to say, hey, yes, I mean, you are making a good scout, you are identifying places, but it's much more than that. It's much more than that. And this is where perhaps, like on another section of this discussion, we can talk about training. We need more training. We need locals to be trained in identifying a location for the matter. Yeah. And going back to some of the other areas where I feel that we do have locals, but perhaps, the opportunity, the opportunity is there, but they're not trained. For example, a very simple example of hair and makeup. Fiji, as you might know, we have lots of hairdressers, we have makeup artists, but again, that doesn't mean that these hairdressers and makeup artists can come straight away, get a job on a production, because a film hairdressing and a film makeup is a little more than the normal makeup or hairdressing, because for example, if a shoot requires blood on the face of the artist. How do you do it? I mean, our locals don't have that kind of training. They know how to apply makeup, but they don't have that. Yeah. So this is again where I think that the opportunities are there, but unfortunately, our locals are missing out because there's a gap. You know, we need to coordinate with the training institutions to say, hey, this is what is needed. Yeah. Likewise for wardrobe, for example. I mean, of course, I mean that can not for a reality show, but for a feature film, for a period feature film, yes. It's a very complicated job. So it can't be done by our locals, but our locals can at least be part of that department. And apart from doing the basic sewing at the moment, the seamstress, I haven't seen anyone going one level up. But here again, I believe that there's room for, improvement training, so that our locals can climb the ladder. Location is fine, that, going up. There are other areas, and I don't know, Lance, but maybe, like in the grip area, the lighting area, we do have a lot of locals. But again, I mean, very few have been able to come up because we need to micromanage, I believe, these areas to see where is the gap, what do we need to do.
I mean, each production is different. I mean, each production manager and directors, they've got their key guys that they want to come and do the job. And as I mentioned before, with regards to the grips department at US Survivor, I mean, Callum, he just said, I'll take any of these boys tomorrow overseas. And when we were looking at another movie Leilun had mentioned, I was starting to look around and hunt around for crew and just say, see what they could do. And I mean, the guys there in grips department, we've got grips guys here that can do those jobs, but they still need someone to supervise and tell them what to do. Someone to liaise with the director, someone to liaise with the camera, with head of camera, which is now first camera guy, and all that sort of stuff. I can't remember the terminology now; it's just gone off my brain. But they've just got to be able to liaise with these people and say, look, we need that scaffolding set up here so we can run a dolly down there or something like that. And this is where they need someone with a supervisory, or managerial role that can do that and tell them what to do. But the skills and the labor is here to do that. In regards to the grips department, units, locations, camera, there's some guys, a lot of the guys here can do the camera gear. There's people here that can do camera work. They understand what lenses to use and stuff like that. So that the core people are here, not the core people, but the grounds people are here, and there's just the guys come in and tell them, look, we need to have this size lens on that camera, and can you do that? And there's no problem to be mounted on that camera.
Interesting. Yep. Awesome.
Yeah, sorry, Jamal, remembered one other area where we do have strength, but perhaps they haven't been fully utilized by some of the productions. This is in catering. I remember very clearly, a couple of years ago, caterers, the catering trucks, and they were all brought from either Australia or New Zealand. Today, the scenario is a bit different. Productions have given opportunities to our locals to cater for. I mean, look at Eco Challenge. That was one of the perhaps bigger productions that came to Fiji. And I'm happy to say that the production executives believed in us, had some confidence, and gave the catering to a local catering company, and they had no complaints. They had just all good words about the local company. There are several local caterers who can provide this. So this is again, something where perhaps they need a little more training in terms of dietary things that need to be taken into account, and what to serve when and what not. So adding on to what they have, all these will help engagement of more local people, more local services by production companies.
Yeah, that's right. Absolutely. We have a lot of food trucks coming up, a lot of food caravans coming up lately. Yes, indeed, catering is a very strong hold we have locally. Ritesh, sorry, just going back to you. What Kahaya was saying, when people jump departments, say for example, a production assistant decides to go into administrative services or accounting services. You have worked directly with the administration and accounting services for productions. Tell me. Are we up to par with what the requirement is with productions in terms of accounting services, legal / administrative services?
Okay, thank you, Shamal. My view is like everyone is new to this industry when it initially started. So I was one of them as well. When I started off with one of the productions, I still remember working first time with CBS Productions when it came in, and one thing still resounds in my head is when they asked me, "Do you know that there will be a tsunami of cash thrown your way, and within matter of time it will be just gone, and then you have to take accountability of all that?" And then I did not realize that what they meant. But as you get the experience, as you work with the different productions, you try to understand the dynamics of a production, like what is required, how and what you have to do. So from a finance perspective, it's not like a normal finance work. That's one thing I realized. You have to be accommodating to other departments, and things move and are done in a very quick matter of time. So you have to be accommodating there. And at that same time, I believe, like from a finance perspective, you will not understand the dynamics of a production by just sitting in the office and trying to understand what's happening outside. You have to physically go out there, be on the set, and understand what's happening. Because later on, what happens is these are the things which help the finance team when you are dealing with the auditors in Fiji, because these are the types of questions they ask of the expenditures, that why was this expense necessary, or why you have to do the particular type of expenses. So once you understand the dynamics of a situation or the set, then you're able to properly explain in order to the auditors in terms of why these things were required. But what I personally feel is that when the crew jump from one department to the other, there is a opportunity as well for them to understand the different departments and how they work within the different departments. So they try to find out, like, example, the construction department. What all is happening in the construction department? What all is happening in the camera department, maybe? So they get more exposure in terms of, so they expose themselves more into different departments, upskilling their own self, which would benefit them in the future productions, and just sharing with the Netflix. So I had the opportunity to be the first accountant for Fiji with them, managing the entire production financing with Netflix. And then I saw that the different department, I mean, like, we were privileged to have a lot of local crews hired as in senior roles. So that was one thing I'm like, I understood, like, as back you have said that the shy nature of the crew. So absolutely, but I think with that, it's because of the friendliness, and plus the locals are a bit observant first. They try to observe the atmosphere of the team around them, and once they start to get that you know level of trust, they try to open up slowly, and then they try to, like, ask you questions and uh, absorb more of it. So it's not that they don't know, understand what they're trying to do, it's just that they are shy to ask in the beginning. But these are some of the things which I have seen, and when I work in finance team, so I try to tell my team as well, or the team who are working, that whenever you get a free time during your lunch time or any break, try to liaise with the other department heads as well. try to understand what they're doing outside. So it just gives you a understanding of the entire script which is there and what is required from that.
Yeah, the industry is as such where you have to know a little about everything. The wholesomeness is required. So in order to understand one department, the other department has to know what is required, what is going on in order to produce results. But yeah, makes sense what you said. Kahaya, with you being in Fiji a few times, you've traveled here, you've worked with the crew. You are very, very well versed from an overseas production point of view with what we currently have in terms of our crew, local strengths and infrastructure. We would like to know, what do you feel that we could do better, or you think that we really need immediate in the short term to up ourselves?
I think that having a more, like as I said before, like just a bit more training for those who don't have the opportunity to come to the mainland, like, you know, small workshops, or even if it's online workshops, just to have the basic skills. So for example, if a production comes to Fiji for a scout and they're targeting certain locations, I think at that time it would be a good opportunity for the AV agents from Fiji to just go in and just do a, like, even if it's a couple of hours, just to be able to give the producers more confidence with the crew that will be there locally. So it's just a small suggestion, but something that would give the producers more confidence. Like, okay, we've gone in, like we know that there are, you know, we had a workshop with 50 people from this village, and a lot of them do seem interested in production. Like a lot, like you can't expect anyone to have the skills that you're looking for immediately, but you know, we all know production, you just learn as you go. So if you know that some people have worked in resorts and they're very good at like they have good basic computer skills or accounting skills, or they're good construction people, or they used to run the generator or work in maintenance at this resort, like you can kind of already have that foundation and give them a bit more information on what to expect with a production. And I just feel like that would give a lot of confidence to producers. Like for us, it's not really an issue on the US Survivor because we're so lucky where we are, and we've been there for 5 years, and we don't want to leave. Like we love all our local crew, and they're trained, and you know, they're part of the team. Like we're already a big team. But I do get a bit nervous if we're ever forced to relocate to a different area in Fiji and we can't bring everyone with us. That you know, it's a
yeah, and I think that's along something that Lalun also mentioned, is about training and going out to the people instead of having them come into the mainland and carry these out. Something that we should look into and perhaps consider how we could do that, going out to the crew in the maritime zones. Lance, you want to add something to that?
No, I mean, as Kahaya and Leila mentioned, yeah, I mean, it would be nice. I mean, with the French Survivor, when we went up the Yasawas, you know, they did hire a little local crew, but a lot of the local crew from that village had come specifically from the mainland to do the job, because they'd been, you know, they went to high school, they could speak English very well and all that sort of stuff. And you notice that also with the US Survivor, that they do hire the local guys there, but there's also a few people that come into the village that belong to the village, but they live on the mainland, you know, and so they'll come and live at the village with their family, do the production, and go back again. And that sort of seems to be the trend. That was a trend. So also in Kandavu, with French Survivor in Kandavu, a lot of people would come from the mainland and stay in the village, do the production, and head back again. It's not ideal, but it did work. And as Kahaya did say, you know, it'd be nice to spend a couple of hours with the local guys. This is what we expect from you. You know, these are the bosses, all that sort of stuff, and it'll be good that way. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah, well, I think a lot of good points coming through. Um, we have spoken quite a bit about this. Um, Johnny, maybe if I could ask you, as having worked in the industry with the local crew, from your perspective, from a crew perspective, what do you think we need, or the crew need, or the productions need in terms of support from the crew, skills?
Oh, yeah, I mean, just going back to the comments about like, training the villagers, that can also prove a bit difficult. I mean, US Foreign Survivor, are a bit of a unique situation that they've been there for 5 years, so they get 5 years to train those individuals in those villages. But where productions come in only for 3 months and they go to various locations, various villages, it could prove to be a little bit difficult to push that initiative. Hence why we have local crews mostly based in Nandi and Suva, because that's where a lot of people have been trained. That's where majority of the production crew like to stay, making it logistically simple. But yeah, I think in retrospect we could help develop more of an understanding of how productions work, in particular to government stakeholders. They play an important role. I don't think it's been mentioned here, but government stakeholders play a very important role in production work, helping those government entities understand how productions work, makes it a lot easier for managers and production crew to do their own job. One is getting permissions to film on various landowners, landowning units, sorry. As a location manager, that is one of the pretty difficult tasks that they have to do, and they have to do it months in preparation before the production even gets into the country. So just like for everyone to have a really good understanding on how productions work. I don't know how you could do that in workshops or various other ways that we could promote production work, because it's very difficult, very different, sorry, than a normal company where they come, they build something, they invest their time, and they're there for 10 years or 20 years or even 30 years. The productions are here for 5 months, US Survivor. So I think just getting everyone that is heavily involved in production work a great understanding of how productions actually work would help local crew drastically. I think that's one main thing that we need to see.
I mean, going back to location, same thing, as he said, just to go and do a scout in a certain place, you still have to go and do a servo, sit down with them and tell them, explain to them why you're there. I'm just here to take a photo to see if the director likes it. If he likes it, then we're going to come back and do it, and then we'll come back and start negotiating. And that's the whole thing. Sometimes you just sort of sneak in there, take a photo and bugger off again. But most of the time they see you taking photos, they want to know what the hell's going on, or you've got a drone in the air or something like that. They want to know what's going on. Why did you do your service? What, all this sort of stuff. And it makes things interesting, I must say. But if there could be a bit more awareness to the villagers and to the people out there that there is a production looking at coming into your area, can they come and take some photos? If they like it, they're going to then come and we'll do a proper service servo afterwards or whatever it is. I don't know how the protocol is. You have to do a service servo anyway, but it does take a lot of time to do that sort of stuff.
Sorry, Sam, I'm going to cut here.
If I may just, sorry,
go ahead.
Add one bit to that compliance issue by production companies when they are shooting on islands. We find that the local crew, when they initially engaged by production company, they don't have team registrations or FNPF registrations, and a lot of times they refuse to get registered because the crew comes up with they're saying that this is a one-off. This is just a one-off production I'm doing. Why should I be paying FNPF, because my money is going to be wasted for the next 10, 15 years and I won't be able to access it. This was actually a major problem we had when we went to Yasawas. The French needed to engage at least about 150 people from there. Initially, more than 200 people were engaged because a lot of things needed to be constructed there. We had a huge struggle getting the locals to register for TIN and FNPF, and this is where the government agencies also need to support productions. I remember I came back to the island, to the mainland, and went to see FRCS and Fiji National Provident CEO to say, look, there's a big challenge there on the island. People are refusing to register, and more so because they have to come to Suva to register, or they have to go to Nandi or Lautoka to register. And I'm glad to say that FRCS and FNPF then the management sent the team across to the island to register people for TIN and VET registrations, and they did something very similar in Kandavu.
Yeah.
So these are some of the things that, while it may sound small, but these are very important things, and compliance things, particularly for productions, because when you engage a local, you need to pay their tax. If they are eligible for that, you need to pay superannuation on their behalf. So yeah, perhaps more awareness with the government agencies as to the requirement of production, that what all is required to be done when a production goes out, particularly to remote islands where they have little access to what is happening on the main island.
Yes, all of this is great. And I think it all falls under the training area, which is your department, Sam. So you're going to have your hands full as we move forward. Quite a few things that we're going to be working on. I wanted to take the conversation in a different direction. It's similar, but so obviously the industry is moving forward, right? Times have changed. A lot has happened the last 2 years. I'm not only referring to COVID and everything that's around it, but also in terms of technology. I think it'd be interesting to talk about what areas are there, what opportunities do you see in the future that might not have been in the past, but that will probably open doors for people that want to come into the industry in the next 5 years. Maybe I would like to go around the panel and see if you have one recommendation or something towards some area that people should be putting attention into in terms of there might be an opportunity there. What would you say? Recommend to? Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, I heard. It's very, very broken though.
Yeah, sorry, I missed that.
But it's breaking.
I'll go again. Can you hear me properly better now, or is it still broken?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the future and what opportunities there might be in the future. The industry is changing technologically and also in terms of COVID and security. If someone wants to come in the industry in the next 5 years, areas where you find that there is an opportunity and that it might have been unattended to, and that it would be easier to go through that direction than competing with other areas where there's already some people in that space.
I'm happy to start. I think my recommendation would be probably put in a bit more focus into equipment rental, and especially with the close proximity to Australia and New Zealand, and hopefully when the flights resume, like being able to have partnerships with production like houses there to be able to rent equipment. For example, for us on US Survivor, when we have equipment that gets damaged or a camera falls in the, it's a whole process to get it replaced. And it just seems like if there was an outlet locally where we could reach out to, and that could go for, I know that it's some equipment is already available, but it could be range from radio, like communication, to generators, to camera equipment, to audio equipment. Like I feel that that's something that in the next 5 years could be very beneficial to Fiji, especially the way the industry is going.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, if I may just add, I think there has been a lot of talk about building studios in Fiji. And I personally don't think that we are maybe ready for it, but we don't have the investors to invest in that area. So perhaps we could start with something small, set up a sound stage. Initially in partnership with one of the government agencies like FNPF or a local bank that wants to partner. That would perhaps make Fiji a little more attractive for production companies to come. And like Kahia said, that having a rental company set up with all the rental equipment that would be available. So it's like slowly building the infrastructure. Infrastructure for productions to come in, and perhaps at some later stage. I mean, I'm just thinking that post-production activities. We find a niche where we could offer services in that area, and we know that government does offer some very good tax incentives, which productions could benefit from. But we need to have the infrastructure where they could do it. Where again partner with either a foreign investor or a local investor to set up a small structure first for post-production work to start. A basic thing like editing. I remember one of the production companies that came from US had hired a small house and they set up an editing facility for their production. And of course, they wanted to benefit more from the tax incentives that was being offered. But that was something that they did, and they managed to do it quite well. Because they brought in their own trained people, but they also hired a number of locals who could assist them with editing work. So this is an area perhaps we need to relook at or place some emphasis on.
Yeah, specifically, I mean, talking about sound stages, I mean, I'm right into my technology, a bit of a techie myself, and I'm looking at all this green screen stuff and LCD screens in the background and all that sort of stuff, and we can easily set something up like that here in Fiji on a small sound stage. It's where someone goes out there and takes a 3D image of an area, and they can use that again if it rains, or they don't have to keep going to that area. They can use it once for all the close-ups and when they're talking and all that sort of stuff. They don't actually have to be on location to do that sort of thing. Because I mean, LCD screens are just getting cheaper and cheaper and cheaper now. If you set it up and use Unreal Engine or something like that. I've been looking at all of that sort of technology with a friend of mine from Singapore. He's a real techie and he likes that sort of stuff. And he's actually from Fiji himself, David Lucas. You might have heard of Richard Lucas. He does all the radio stuff. Well, his son, David Lucas, is quite into that sort of stuff. Yeah. So, I mean, it wouldn't be expensive to set that up, but it still costs a bit of money.
I believe we need to be focused. We don't have to start building something very big. We can start with small, focused, and then build from there. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, small soundstage, something small. We can build something inside, like little sets and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. All the movies we've worked on, we've had to hire warehouses, which tend to be very noisy. They're right on main roads or close to the main road, or there's building going on next door, and we've had to hire the warehouse and then pay someone to shut up. And that was the hard part for us here with some of the movies we've done.
Okay.
Maybe what
I
do you think? Sorry.
Yeah, Sorry, just to add something there. I think from Film Fiji, one of the things that we see, obviously we can looking at the mid to long term, there's investment in infrastructure and that we need to look into. There's a lot of variables also that we need to take into account for that kind of decisions. I think there's also some opportunities that are more probably short to mid-term that have to do with some skills that might not be there at the moment. I think certainly COVID has opened certain doors in terms of people that have some level of knowledge on COVID safety measures that we could have in country. I think the fact that it's a little bit harder at the moment to do location scouting, as we've had the opportunity to talk about this a few times in the past. The idea of having people that have become somewhat more knowledgeable in the use of certain tools so that location scouting can be done remotely and they have access to certain softwares so that makes that process easier in a first stage and that we can have those kinds of offerings in country. I think all of those might be certain areas in which there are specific opportunities in the short term that we can look at. Related to, I don't know, Lylon or Ritesh, the idea of how much specific knowledge is there in terms of accounting software related to film in Fiji. I don't know if we have enough people with that kind of knowledge at the moment. But we've discussed maybe other different things, but I'm always interested how we make it easier for new people coming into the industry or people that are already into upskill for the things that are currently or are going to be needed in the next couple of years.
I think virtual scouting, like you said, Ramiro, that's something we can start looking at immediately, because if productions want to come to Fiji, for example, instead of coming here and doing the 14 days isolation, they could perhaps start at least with the virtual scouting and then move to the next stage of physically coming here to inspect what they've selected from the virtual scouting. So yeah, there's definitely opportunity in terms of setting up virtual scouting facilities by the locals over here. In terms of accounting software, Ritesh can speak more on the software, but I believe that there is room for software training, different types of software trainings used by different productions. Ritesh, do you want to add to that?
Yes, thank you. So, I mean, like basically, I think the main thing is the knowing the basics of like how to process a particular transaction. So software becomes a secondary tool, but with film productions which I have worked with, they mostly use the smart accounting in terms of getting their budgeting done and getting all their costs captured. So it becomes convenient for them in terms of liaising with the financiers offshore. And that's the main reason I believe they don't want to touch in terms of getting a new accounting software in Fiji, which would be more in line with the FRCS compliance in terms of generating what the report is required here. So it's just the way we have to work around and get these things sorted out into their software and produce that same report without trying to disturb the entire budgeting thing and entire cost report functions. And that is one reason, I mean, like I believe we have found solutions in terms of working around with their softwares to generate the reports which is more suitable and what is required in terms of for audit purposes, in terms of the audit FRCS audit purpose, and in terms of the monthly compliance. And now that FRCS has come up with their own TPOS system, it becomes much more easier in a way in terms of submitting everything online. Though it becomes a another work into another segment of work where you have to enter all these details in Excel format and give it to them. So I believe a accounting software, even a Fiji's accounting software, may not be suitable in terms of generating those type of reports. But in terms of upskilling with their softwares, the accountants which I've worked with, and plus the smart accounting software, so there is online these trainings available, which the production companies share with the team, local team here, and plus these manuals as well. So as you go along, it's nothing different from any other software. So it's just basically understanding the fundamentals of it and the levels of it, like how to go about using it. And it all comes from giving the opportunity to the locals to use it. So through my personal experience, there is a good chance of locals taking up senior roles. All we need is a production accountant from offshore. And I understand why they need to send a production accountant, because that particular person is engaged with the production from the beginning in terms of drafting the budget, in terms of liaising with the financiers offshore in the office, weekly meetings with the producers. But that gives opportunity to the senior locals in senior roles to understand as well, come into the play as well, to assist the production accountants and understand what is required to take up that role in future. So there is definitely an opportunity that within that 5 years, production accountant roles can be taken by a local person in terms of doing all that. So that's something which I just wanted to highlight in table. Yeah, thank you.
Interesting, yeah.
Thank you.
And sorry, I missed adding on to what you said about COVID health and safety protocols, Ramiro. Yeah, I think that that's an absolutely an absolute must for people in Fiji or for us over here to develop and liaise with production companies. You are aware, and so are we, that the current COVID management team are quite busy. They don't have the time to take productions around to do the scout. So if we had companies that were accredited by the COVID management committee to say, yes, they have the ability to explain what the health and safety protocols are, and they will make sure that the productions follow, we can sort of delegate this part of the work to be done by a company, and then certify it to say yes, they have followed it, so that they can move to the next stage. I think that's quite an important area we need to look at quickly. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, thank you, Mrs. Khan. I think that's absolutely something that we need to do currently in the short term right now. Is to have that outlined and and the message out to the local industry about all these things about COVID protocols and all that. But yeah, I think we have discussed about our current level of strengths within the industry. Perhaps some things which we could look at in terms of training, going out to the islands and reaching the people about how they can enter the industry. But yes, something that we have identified today is that there is a lot of training required for our local crew in order for them to enter into the industry and also be aware of the different departments and the requirements of these departments as identified by Ritesh and Kahaya. But yes, thank you, guys. Is there any closing comments or remarks that everyone or anyone would like to put forward, or any suggestions?
I have a final few thoughts. The idea of, I think, and that was the reason for the panel, is to try and get the message across of how important it is to learn, to be involved, to be on a set, to how much knowledge you get. There's the traditional learning, which is very, very important. There's the upskilling that takes place continuously, but there's also a unique process of learning that takes place by actually being on set in the process of being in a production and learning there and being so finding that space and that opportunity, which is not an easy thing. And I know I'm saying something that a lot of people that might watch this video will ask, well, yeah, but how do you get that first opportunity? So one of the things, and we have the doors open, is that we try and help students from universities to get a spot on productions. And I know that producers that have come and we've discussed this, Kahaya, with you in the past, and with many other producers, that they're very willing to find those opportunities so that we can place students in the production. I think Fiji is in a very unique position, students in Fiji, in order to get access to that kind of learning, which is not that easy actually. It's a very hard process to get that first opportunity. So. So having said that, I wanted to finish. I think we've gone, unless someone has other comments, we've gone for, it's been a great panel. But I wanted to finish with one question that I know it's not an easy one to answer, but it's the one that's always in the mind of people trying to get their first opportunity in the industry. And so the question is to each one of the panelists, what would you recommend is the best way for someone that is taking their first step, or how to get their foot on the door, how to, when and how reach out to and to whom in order to get that first chance?
Well, I think Film Fiji, with their contacts in the universities and everything else, I mean, it's all part of the compliance and all that sort of stuff, that we have to hire someone or use someone from the university or from FNU. I mean, Film Fiji should start looking at having a database of people so that we can, start looking at people. Oh, this person's from this village. We might use them instead of bring them all the way from Suva and stuff like that. If they've done the courses in FNU, Lei Lun has got a fairly big database of people, as I think she has now. And so does Vince. So yeah, I mean, it's just a matter of figuring out what departments and all that sort of stuff is required, and the productions need to tell us what they want first. What do you think, Leilu?
There's one thing that's lacking here is a talent management company. We don't have a talent management company, so each AV agent holds their data, the people who've worked with them on productions they've facilitated. Film Fiji has got database of the local crew, for example, but it's quite fragmented. So we have to find a solution to put everyone's CV, the work experience they have, put them together. And when a production comes, Film Fiji, of course, is the first point of contact. And this is where productions ask you, not only about AV agents they're required to engage under the legislation, but the local crew. Who are the local crew? So I believe that if in the absence of a talent agent in Fiji, Film Fiji could perhaps step up and do this role till somebody, till the industry, I suppose, starts picking up momentum again, and then someone goes out and sets up a company and starts building up some database. This is perhaps where we can start in terms of engaging locals. This is just my view. But it's subject to everybody else's views as well. This is how I think things could start. Film Fiji could be the central point for now. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Ramiro, I see you smiling. And, yeah.
I thought you were going to say that they can send you an email, but.
I would say, because going back to how do you first get your foot in the door, because it's one thing to already have worked on the production and being part of that database, but the first step and how to enter, which can be so difficult. And I think this is probably it's a very naive suggestion, but I think a Facebook group could be helpful that everyone can have access to. And I know sometimes with productions coming in, and there's the confidential nature of productions in general, so you can't really advertise Survivors coming in February, for example, or it's a bit tricky. But having a Facebook group, which I found in Fiji, it's fascinating how everyone has Facebook. It doesn't matter which village you live in, like they're all on, like that's where they get the news, like the Ministry of Health updates, everything is on the Facebook pages of everyone. So I feel like a Facebook group could be helpful, that everyone has access to. If a producer comes in, is like, oh, it's like Fiji local crew, and then they can go in, they can comment, they can put their CVs up there, or have an administrator. I think it would be just a simple way for everyone to have access to the information, and it doesn't necessarily, you don't have to share the confidential side of it. It's just the information's there, they can share it, and they can say, like, I don't have any experience, but I really want to learn, and I'm extremely keen. And that's enough for someone like me to want to give that person a shot. It's about opportunities, and going back to people who live in remote areas don't have the same opportunities as everyone else. And I feel it's something that can be changed and would be helpful.
Thank you for that, Kahaya. Anyone else would like to add on to that, or?
Yeah, if I can just put my 2 cents in, if that's okay.
Sorry, Chane.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, go ahead, Chane.
Yeah. In my view, I agree with everyone's comments, definitely. And also, in my view, I would say US Survivor has done this a lot, is upskilling the local crew that we've already got initially. I've had experiences where some people in previous productions, maybe assistant managers in that production, they go on to the next one and they're a runner. So the upskill is not there anymore. We need to keep the tempo of certain individuals that have it. Those lower positions can be available for those that want to start entering into the film industry. You can't have a newbie coming in and working on a camera. I mean, that's logically not going to happen. But they'll always start off as, like I did, as a wrangler, a runner, or a production assistant. But if those positions are already taken up by already very experienced local crew, because the opportunity is not there for them to be in a normal position where they would be, then that cuts off the chain altogether of that even happening, because the positions are filled up. So I think we as Film Fiji will need to work with AV agents to ensure, like what US Survivor has done, that certain individuals keep growing in the production itself, and they are also upskilling themselves. It is a risk, like Kahaya said, if they leave Fiji and don't come back anymore for some absurd reason, that wish to take all the crew with them, we'll be stuck with no crew and no one that whole vast experience of 10 years. I see Lance smiling. I think he'll be one of the first ones off as well.
I live in Fiji.
Lance can't go.
Yeah, so that'll be my view. We need to not only encourage people to come in, but give the opportunity for it to be there in the first place, where those positions can be available for those newcomers to get in, and the old individuals that have been in there for years to keep growing and continue growing, and hopefully teaching the individuals that are coming up as well. Like I'm sure what Lance, Vince, and Leiloon have been doing, and so has Ritesh, with all the new local crews that are coming in. That vast knowledge, I think, would be acceptable. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. That makes perfect sense, Chane. I think what you've said is in order for people to grow, because what happens is actually the industry is small. It's a niche industry over here, and although the demand is growing, but the productions are only so much, and for people to get their hands on the job, there's too many people, and there's only so many jobs. So and also, having said that, climbing up the ladder and having people to excel further within the productions, and in giving a chance for the newcomers to actually take up the lower positions and then learn from there. But that's something that we have to work with line producers, with
I
productions, and
also
something
want
that Film PG has to do as an initiative.
to.
Sorry, Mrs. Kanyes, go ahead.
No, sorry. I also just briefly want to touch on the sustainability of the industry, because it's like a catch-22 situation. The local crew are not able to have a career in the industry because the industry at this stage is not sustainable. We have one production, in a year. We have two productions in a year, and then what? So this is where they go and work on a production, and afterwards they go and do something else. Until and unless the industry, grows to a level where the demand for local crew sort of exceeds what's available, then it will be a different situation altogether. But currently, I think to keep the local crew engaged and interested, perhaps, when there is downtime, when there is no production, then more basic training courses could be offered, so that they can keep on doing learning even part-time, even if they have another job, but after hours or during their free time they could be doing a course. So that will continue to upskill the locals, and whenever the opportunity comes, of course, they can always put their hands up to say, here, hey guys, I'm available, I've got this qualification here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, if I may just add as well, I think with the second Kahaya, what she mentioned, that when productions come to Fiji, so they are not able to advertise as such in 2 or 3 months time that they will be in Fiji doing a shoot. So what happens is, once the production is on ground, and then the recruitment starts taking place, and it's these experienced people, experienced local crew who try to get the other local crew engaged into a production by word of mouth, or by the relationship they had with their friends or families, to get them into the industry. But I believe what happens is that once the production is on ground, then we are more able to know that in which department how many local crews are required in terms of getting the work done. So somebody might need to keep like this, my suggestion, like keeping a database whereby all these expression of interests are taken in, and which department are you trying to put your expression of interest in. So basically, when these productions come in, and so we can, like, someone can filter out and try to contact these people if they're still interested. And as Leilun had said, that our industry is small, so there's a few months of work, and then these people tend to go back to a more permanent role of work. So this gives us opportunity to scan through and try to contact these people and see if we can get them engaged into productions, to the roles which the production requires.
Thank you for that,
Someone is getting a call.
Ritesh. Yeah, I think someone's
Not me.
Anyway, yeah, I think we've covered all areas quite well. And yeah, I mean, as we've mentioned, that there has to be an opening somewhere in order to be on a production and learn while actually working, because you only grow once you start working. But yeah, I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everyone. We've had a wonderful discussion. We've covered on a few aspects outside of what we had initially wanted to talk about, but also a few additional things, which was great, and given us more insight and being able to think outside the box and think of more things which we can do and create more opportunities for the local crew and the industry as a whole. But yeah, thanking everyone. Thank you, Kahaya, for your time, for joining us from French Polynesia. Thank you, Mrs. Khan and Ritesh from Pacific Investment Consultancy. Thank you, Lance. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I know you've
guys.
taken time out from your farm. Chane, and of course Ramiro. But yeah, once again, I'd like to wish you all the best. Thank you for joining this panel discussion today, and we will keep in touch and hoping for the best for the film industry here in Fiji. Take
Good.
care and keep safe, everyone.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
You.
Vinaka. Bye bye, Vinaka.
Thank you so much.